At 60, her hands were known for arranging lilies with gentle grace. But when a rifle targeted 3 hostages, she remembered those same hands were trained for something else entirely. One shot would change everything. Abby Clarke unlocked the glass-paned door of Serene Stems at precisely 7 a.m., a ritual as ingrained as the rising sun. For a woman of 60, whose silver hair was neatly pinned in a classic chignon and whose knuckles bore the faint, artistic swell of arthritis, routine was a comfort. The soft chime of the bell above the door was the day's first note in a symphony of quiet purpose. Her small flower shop on Oakhaven's main boulevard was a testament to a life deliberately curated for peace. Sunlight streamed through the large front window, illuminating dust motes dancing over buckets of fresh-cut delphiniums and snow-white hydrangeas. The air was a gentle perfume of damp earth, cut stems, and the faint, sweet scent of the chamomile tea she brewed every morning. At 60, Abby had cultivated a reputation as the town's most thoughtful florist. Her wedding bouquets were whispers of future joy, her funeral wreaths were embraces of solace, and her hands, though weathered by time, moved with a startling, fluid precision that customers often mistook for simple, practiced talent. "Morning, Abby," called Liam, the young man from the vinyl record shop next door, his voice carrying over the gentle hum of street traffic. "Those lavender roses are looking epic today." Abby looked up from a stubborn fern, a warm, grandmotherly smile creasing the corners of her eyes. "Thank you, Liam. They just arrived from the coast. See that you don't work too hard today." Her voice was soft, measured, the kind of tone that could soothe a crying child or calm a nervous bride. She wore a simple linen apron over a comfortable cashmere sweater and dark trousers. As she began arranging the day's window display, her hands moved with an almost unnerving efficiency. Each stem was snipped to a precise length, each thorn removed with a flick of her thumb, each bloom positioned at an angle that maximized its beauty. To the casual observer, it was artistry. To someone who understood windage, target acquisition, and the cold mathematics of ballistics, it might have looked like something else entirely. But that life, Staff Sergeant Abigail Clarke, U.S. Army marksman, veteran of Desert Storm, was nearly 30 years in the past, a ghost she had long ago laid to rest. Or so she believed. At 9:15 a.m., the bell chimed again, this time with a dissonant urgency. Detective Ray Semper of the Oakhaven Police Department stepped inside, his large frame looking out of place amongst the delicate blossoms. He removed his hat, his expression grim. "Mrs. Clarke," he began, his voice low and respectful. "I need to ask you to close up for the day. There's a situation." Abby looked up from the orchid she was repotting, her expression calm but her eyes instantly alert. In her old life, an unexpected visit from law enforcement meant a mission briefing. In this life, she hoped it was nothing more than a minor local disturbance. "What kind of situation, detective?" "An armed man has taken hostages in the financial building across the street. 4th floor. We're evacuating the entire block." He hesitated, glancing towards her large front window. Abby's gaze followed his. Through the meticulously clean glass of her shop, she could see it all. Police cruisers forming a haphazard barricade. SWAT officers in full tactical gear taking cover. The modern glass and steel facade of the Henderson Financial Building, a stark contrast to her quaint storefront. And on the 4th floor, in the corner office, the frantic, silhouetted movements of a man. "We need to get you and Liam out of here, ma'am," Semper urged. "It's not safe." Abby nodded, but her mind had already shifted gears. The familiar, peaceful view from her window had transformed into a tactical map. Her eyes, aided by the slight magnification of her reading glasses, weren't just seeing a building, they were calculating angles, assessing wind patterns funneling between the buildings, and identifying potential lines of sight. 30 years of civilian life, and her brain still functioned like a sniper's scope. "Detective," Abby said, her voice steady, betraying none of the cold dread coiling in her stomach. "What's the suspect's exact position?" Semper looked at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. 4th floor, corner office. Why? Abby didn't answer immediately. Her mind was a whirlwind of automatic calculations. 4th floor, corner office, approximately 50 meters horizontal distance. 12 meters elevation. A slight crosswind from the northeast, maybe 5 to 7 miles per hour, judging by the flutter of the banner on the lamppost. Minimal atmospheric distortion. She could feel the ghost of a rifle stock pressed against her cheek. Mrs. Clarke, we really need to move you to safety now, Semper repeated, his tone gentle but firm, the way one speaks to an elderly person in a crisis. Yes, of course, she replied, her voice returning to its usual softness. I just need a moment to lock the register and put the more delicate plants in the back. He nodded, accepting the excuse of a diligent shop owner, and stepped outside to manage the chaotic evacuation, his presence a shield between her and the unfolding horror. But Abby wasn't thinking about the register. Her eyes kept drifting to the window, her mind caught in a terrible, familiar dance. She could see the SWAT snipers setting up on the roof of the adjacent library. A bad position. The angle was too steep, the shot would be downward through double-paned glass, with hostages in close proximity. A recipe for disaster. She moved to the back of the shop, the scent of damp soil and lilies filling her lungs. For a moment, she closed her eyes, and the fragrance was replaced by the acrid smell of hot desert sand and gunpowder from a lifetime ago. She saw the face of a young soldier, a boy really, who had been her spotter. The memory was so vivid it made her sway. She gripped the edge of a workbench to steady herself, her knuckles white. That was then, she told herself fiercely. This is now. I am a florist. I create beauty. But as she gathered her purse and keys, she couldn't shake the image of the 3 figures she had glimpsed inside that office, huddled on the floor, waiting to see if they would live or die. By 11 a.m., the situation had devolved. Abby sat in her car 2 blocks away, listening to the police scanner app on her phone, a relic of a past paranoia she'd never quite managed to delete. The suspect, a disgruntled former employee named Marcus Webb, was growing more agitated. Suspect is demanding a news helicopter and $1 million, the scanner crackled with static. Negotiations are breaking down. He's becoming more unstable. Tactical intervention may be necessary. Abby closed her eyes. Intervention. A clean, clinical word for a messy, violent reality. A dynamic entry. Flashbangs. A hail of bullets. She had seen enough of them to know that the line between a successful rescue and a tragic failure was razor thin, and Marcus Webb was a man stomping all over that line. Her phone buzzed. A text from Liam. They won't let me back to the shop. Are you okay, Abby? She typed back a reassuring reply, but her gaze was fixed on the distant office building. The question wasn't just about her safety anymore. It was about whether, after 30 years, she was still the same person. Could these old eyes still judge the wind? Could this aging body hold a rifle steady enough? The doubt was a cold, heavy weight in her chest. At 11:23 a.m., the scanner crackled with a new, terrifying urgency. Shots fired. Repeat, shots fired inside the building. Suspect has fired his weapon. The words sliced through Abby's internal debate. The time for questioning her abilities was over. She made a decision that would unravel the peaceful tapestry of the life she had so carefully woven. She started her car, not driving away from the scene, but circling around the police perimeter. She knew these streets, every alley and back entrance. She parked 4 blocks away and approached her shop from the rear, slipping through the back door she always left unlocked during business hours. The familiar, comforting scent of her shop now felt like a betrayal of the violence unfolding just across the street. She didn't hesitate. She walked past the buckets of vibrant flowers, her steps sure and silent, and climbed the narrow, creaking stairs to the small storage loft above the shop. From this elevated position, through a dusty, half-moon window, she had a perfect, unobstructed line of sight to the 4th-floor corner office. She could see the scene with terrifying clarity, a man, Webb, pacing erratically, waving a hunting rifle. 3 people on the floor. 2 women and a man, their faces masks of pure terror. Abby moved to the far corner of the loft, behind a stack of unused clay pots and bags of soil. There, hidden beneath a canvas tarp, was a long, heavy wooden crate that looked like it might hold old gardening tools. With practiced movements, she unfastened the brass latches. Inside, nestled in custom-cut foam that had yellowed with age, was not a collection of spades and trowels, but the cold, dark steel of an M24 sniper weapon system. The rifle was in immaculate condition, cleaned and oiled with a devotion that bordered on reverence. It was a relic from a buried life, a promise she had made to herself to never need again. Assembling it was a ritual. Her hands, which sometimes fumbled with delicate floral wire, moved with an instinctual, brutal grace. The heavy barrel clicked into the stock. The bolt slid home with a smooth, satisfying snick. The scope, a vintage Leupold, mounted onto the receiver with a familiar metallic sigh. The process was a resurrection, awakening muscles and memories that had lain dormant for 3 decades. As she settled the rifle's bipod on the dusty windowsill, she held a photograph that was always tucked inside the case, a faded picture of a young woman in desert camouflage, her arm around a smiling young man. Her spotter. Her friend. Lost in that same war. She wasn't just saving strangers, she was honoring a debt. The scanner on the floor beside her erupted again. Hostage down. Suspect has shot a hostage. Requesting immediate medical, repeat, immediate medical. That was it. The final push. The world of flowers, of peace, of quiet dignity, dissolved. Abby's gaze sharpened, her breathing deepened, and the 60-year-old florist vanished. In her place, peering through the powerful scope, was Staff Sergeant Abigail Clarke. Through the Leupold scope, the world shrank to a circle of terrifying clarity. Time seemed to warp, slowing down as her training took over. She saw one of the women on the floor, clutching her leg, a dark stain of blood spreading across her trousers. Webb was screaming, his face contorted with rage and panic, raising his rifle again, this time aiming it at the male hostage who was trying to shield the others. Abby's world narrowed further. There was no flower shop, no town, no past or future. There was only the shot. Target assessment, adult male, approximately 6 feet, 200 pounds. Erratic movement, but a predictable pattern. Weapon, hunting rifle, likely a .30-06. Amateur grip. Psychological state, critical. High probability of imminent, lethal violence. Her body responded without conscious thought, a machine built for this single purpose. Her breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm she had practiced 1,000 times in the blistering desert heat. Inhale. Exhale halfway. Hold. The crosshairs settled on Webb's center mass. Her finger, the same one that could gently guide a rose into place, curled around the cold, curved steel of the trigger. Wind, 7 miles per hour, from the northeast. Distance, 52 meters. Glass refraction, compensate half a mil up, a quarter left. Natural point of aim. Sight picture perfect. At 11:41 a.m., the M24 cracked. The sound was not a sharp, modern pop. It was a deep, authoritative boom, a thunderclap that echoed off the brick and glass of the downtown buildings, a sound that belonged to a different era. Through the scope, Abby watched Webb drop instantly, a puppet with its strings cut. The hunting rifle clattered to the floor from his lifeless hands. A clean shot. No collateral damage. The remaining hostages were frozen for a second, then scrambled away from the body, their ordeal over. For a single, deafening moment, the entire street fell silent. Then, the police radios exploded. Suspect down. Suspect is down. Who has the shot? Sniper teams, report. Negative, command. That was not us. All units, sweep for a second shooter. Unknown location. Abby pulled back from the rifle, a deep, shuddering tremor running through her arms. The adrenaline receded, leaving behind an ocean of exhaustion and a profound, aching sadness. She had just taken a life for the first time in 30 years. She had also saved 3. As SWAT teams stormed the now silent office, she began to carefully disassemble her rifle. She was just closing the lid on the wooden crate when she heard heavy footsteps pounding up the loft stairs. Detective Semper appeared in the doorway, his service weapon drawn but held low. His eyes, wide with disbelief, moved from Abby's tired, pale face, to the long wooden crate, to the open window overlooking the scene. "Mrs. Clarke," he breathed, the name a question, an accusation, and a statement of pure shock all at once. Abby stood slowly, her hands open and visible. Her voice, when she spoke, was raspy. "He was going to kill the second one, Detective." "That shot," Semper stammered, lowering his weapon. "Through glass. At that angle. My guys said it was impossible." Abby looked past him, out the window at the paramedics now rushing into the building. "Today," she said softly, her voice filled with the weariness of a lifetime, "wasn't impossible. It was just necessary." Within an hour, Serene Stems was no longer a sanctuary of peace but the epicenter of a multi-agency investigation. FBI, ATF, state police, they all descended, their black vehicles forming a stark, intimidating perimeter around the little shop with its cheerful blue awning. They wanted to know how a 60-year-old florist with a registered small business and a clean record had made a shot that the lead FBI sniper called, "one in a million." Abby sat in the back of Detective Semper's car, not under arrest, but not free. While investigators in hazmat suits carefully catalogued her loft, she watched the world she had built crumble. The hostages were safe, Marcus Webb was dead, and the mystery of the ghost shot had been solved by a single security camera showing her slipping in through the back door. A woman in a sharp, dark suit slid into the seat beside her. "Mrs. Clarke, I'm Agent Turner with the FBI." Her eyes were sharp, analytical. "We've run your background. Staff Sergeant Abigail Clarke. U.S. Army, 75th Ranger Regiment Attachment. Graduated top of your class from the sniper school at Fort Benning in 1990. "That's correct," Abby said quietly. "Honorable discharge in 1995. No record. Opened this flower shop 6 months later." Agent Turner paused, her gaze intense. "Why flowers, Sergeant?" Abby looked across the street at her shop, at the window boxes overflowing with petunias. "Because on the battlefield, Agent Turner, you only ever see things end. I wanted to spend the rest of my life watching things grow. And yet you kept the rifle." "Old habits," Abby murmured. "That wasn't a habit, Mrs. Clarke. That was a professional military-grade execution under extreme duress. You saved 3 lives today. Legally, under the circumstances, it was a justified use of force. But we have questions." For the next 3 hours, Abby was debriefed. Her past was exhumed, her present scrutinized, and her actions analyzed by men and women half her age who looked at her with a mixture of awe and suspicion. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows down the boulevard, Detective Semper returned. "You're free to go, Abby. But there's something you should know." "What's that?" "The hostage who was wounded, Sophia Chen. She's stable. And she's asking to meet you." Abby shook her head. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "You're a hero. I don't want to be celebrated for killing someone, Ray. I just want to go back to arranging my flowers." But Semper was persistent. An hour later, Abby found herself standing outside room 314 at Oakhaven General Hospital. Through the partially open door, she could see Sophia Chen, a woman in her 40s, her leg bandaged and elevated. A young girl, no older than 7, sat on the bed beside her, drawing in a coloring book. Abby knocked softly. Sophia's head snapped up. Her face, etched with pain and exhaustion, transformed when she saw Abby. "It's you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're the one." "I'm the florist from across the street," Abby said, her voice barely audible. "You saved us," Sophia said, tears welling in her eyes. "He was going to kill my husband. The police, they couldn't get a clear shot." She looked at her daughter, who was now staring at Abby with wide, curious eyes. "You saved her mother." The little girl slid off the bed, walked over to Abby, and held out a piece of paper. It was a crayon drawing of a bright yellow sun and a stick figure holding a flower. For the first time since the shot, Abby felt her own composure crack. A tear traced a path down her wrinkled cheek. "I hadn't touched that rifle in almost 30 years, she confessed, her voice breaking. "I promised myself I never would again." Sophia reached out, her hand warm and firm. "You created the most beautiful thing of all today," she said, her voice full of a gratitude so profound it was humbling. "You gave 3 families their lives back." The story exploded. Local grandmother, a war hero, saves hostages with impossible shot. Abby's quiet life was over. Her shop was besieged by news vans and well-wishers. Military blogs analyzed the ballistics. Veterans groups hailed her. She received offers from private security firms, military contractors, even a movie producer. She turned them all down. 3 weeks later, during a quiet afternoon, the bell above the door chimed. A woman in her 50s, her face a portrait of quiet grief, stood hesitantly among the roses. "Mrs. Clarke." "I'm Linda Webb." Abby's hand stilled on the bouquet she was wrapping. "Webb." The name hung in the air. "Marcus Webb was my son." Abby felt the air leave her lungs. "I am so deeply sorry for your loss." Linda Webb nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the peaceful shop. "I came to thank you," she said, her voice steady but fragile. "My son, he was very sick. He wasn't himself that day. What you did, you prevented him from becoming a monster. You saved those people, yes. But you also saved him from doing something that would have destroyed the last good part of his soul." She looked at a vase of simple, hopeful white daisies. Could you make an arrangement for his funeral? Something peaceful." Tears streamed down Abby's face as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "I would be honored." 6 months passed. The media frenzy faded. The world moved on. Serene Stems returned to being a neighborhood flower shop. But Abby had changed. The wall between her past and present had been demolished. She was no longer 2 people, but one whole person, carrying both the gentle hands of a florist and the steady eye of a soldier. One Tuesday morning, her phone rang. It was Detective Sempra. "Abby, I know I promised I wouldn't," he began, his voice strained. "But we have a situation. A bank robbery. Suspect is barricaded with hostages, including 2 children. My snipers can't get an angle. The building's architecture is difficult. Ray. I'm not asking you to shoot, Abby. I swear. But you see things differently. You understand the angles, the possibilities. We just need your eyes. We need your advice." Abby looked around her beautiful, quiet shop. The life she had built. The peace she had earned. This wasn't her job anymore. But then she thought of Sophia Chen's daughter. She thought of Linda Webb's quiet dignity. She thought of the weight of a skill that could take a life, but could also, in its own way, preserve it. She took a deep breath. "One condition, Ray. Name it. After today, you find another way. I am a florist. This is what I do." She paused, looking toward the downtown skyline where children were in danger. "But sometimes, a florist has to do something else. As she hung up her apron and reached for her keys, she knew she had finally found a way for both parts of her to coexist. She wouldn't regret learning her deadly skills, and she wouldn't regret walking away from them. But she was glad she still had them when they were needed. Some people serve in uniform. Others serve in whatever way they can, whenever they are called. Abigail Clarke served by saving lives, sometimes with flowers that brought comfort, and sometimes with a wisdom that could stop a bullet before it was ever fired. This story shows that heroes come in all ages and that service never truly ends. What do you think makes a true hero? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please, always comment with respect for everyone involved. For more stories that uncover the extraordinary in the ordinary, hit that subscribe button.